In high schools, colleges, and universities across the country, educators are facing an epidemic, a cheating epidemic. With generative AI tools like Gemini, Claude, and most notably ChatGPT easily accessible, it's an uphill battle to get students to stay focused, let alone do their homework. While ChatGPT has only been publicly available for a few years, it's already done tremendous damage to the education system. Michael Long, a high school English teacher in the Chicago suburbs, estimates that 30 to 40% of his students use AI to do the brunt of their work for them, and it's only getting harder to tell what's written by a human and what's not.
And at the beginning, it was pretty clear to tell what was written with AI and what wasn't, whereas now, in the stage that ChatGPT is at, you can still generally tell, but it's much harder to discern.
As ChatGPT use becomes more frequent and more problematic, teachers and professors have put in place policies restricting AI usage. One tactic that's become popular is the use of blue books for in-class quizzes and exams. These simple books pose open-ended questions, forcing students to handwrite a longer answer that shows their unique thought process. In Long's classroom, his policy is that AI tools are strictly off-limits for major projects. But for smaller assignments, it's sometimes allowed to help with items like structuring a paper or checking grammar, as long as AI isn't doing all the work. While he recognizes that AI can be helpful, it's easy to abuse. Overall, he's seen a concerning decline in student engagement and work ethic.
I'd say students are a little less engaged. I think knowing that they have this tool to fall back on, it kind of lowers the stakes of maybe major assignments, major assessments, and they maybe feel like they don't have to tune in as deeply or as thoroughly as before. And especially in my subject of English, students are starting to lose sight of the value of reading and writing, which is kind of crazy to think. But if there's this machine that can do all of their reading and writing work for them, some students might think, why should I spend my time learning these skills?
High school is a crucial time for students to develop their critical thinking skills and expand on reading and writing comprehension. Long is concerned that students who depend on AI to write essays or understand reading assignments won't be prepared for the demands of college-level work. In high school, it's easier for teachers to identify when a person is struggling and get them more help. In college, that support is much harder to provide.
I think that students are becoming a little bit more prone to taking a quick or easy way out of an assignment instead of putting in some hard or rigorous work to get to the learning. And so in high school, our job is to do everything to make sure that our students are learning and don't fail. So I do get concerned for college where the professors maybe don't really care as much if students pass or fail. And so they'll get to this higher education level and maybe won't be able to do the high-level work that's being demanded of them.
And colleges are seeing this already. Brian Green, Director of Technology Ethics at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University, has also noticed big shifts in his classroom since the launch of ChatGPT. Similar to Long, he's seen shorter attention spans and less engagement. But he's even more concerned about the long-term impact of students graduating school without the skills they need to succeed.
One of the things I like to tell my students is if they've been using AI to replace them in school, they should be prepared to be replaced by AI in the workplace, because ultimately they're writing themselves out of their own education. And by doing that, they're kind of writing themselves out of their own job ultimately. They need to be able to think for themselves. That's the reason that people get hired for doing things, is because they have talents, not because they can just get AI to do everything for them.
A recent Wall Street Journal survey found that 89% of college students have used ChatGPT to complete a homework assignment. Not only is this bad for individuals, but it has broader societal implications. What happens when a generation of doctors, engineers, and scientists use AI to cheat through critical parts of their training?
People need to grow up. People need to be able to fulfill those roles in society. If we don't have enough people to get society to operate, then society starts deteriorating. If we don't get enough doctors who know what they're doing, then you get more medical mistakes. If you don't get enough electrical engineers or electricians or other people who can make the electrical grid work, then you're going to have blackouts. If you don't get enough people who know how the sewage system works or the water system works, then you're going to have problems with those systems. And ultimately, society just starts falling apart. We need to raise up individuals who can replace the older generation as the older generation gets old and retires and eventually is not around anymore to run the world. We need to make sure that young people are equipped to step into those places.
Green adds that it's important for students to step up and realize the value of really learning and understanding the material. However, they're not the only ones that need to take accountability. As a tech ethicist, he believes that OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, and other developers should do more to restrict student access to their platforms.
OpenAI released ChatGPT right before finals, just a couple years ago, and right before college essays were due for people who were applying to college. And it was just like throwing a bomb into the educational system. It quickly ruined so much, and they've taken no responsibility for this. This is something that they caused. It should be something that they try to clean up. They have not tried to clean it up. They've done some tiny little attempts, but if anything, they're trying to make it worse by selling their stuff as something that's useful for educational purposes. And in some cases, it can be useful for education, but for the most part, it's really just a kind of a mess that they've created.
Some potential benefits include writing assistants, like Long uses in his classroom, as well as virtual tutoring and exam prep. But before ChatGPT and other software can become truly effective tools for learning, Green says there need to be some major changes.
What I would like to see happen is some sort of restriction which says that you can't use AI for particular kinds of assignments, or you can't access AI unless you have a reason to be accessing it. Or there's got to be some centralized database that's collecting all of these responses so that you can check what's turned in class with what was made by a generative AI system. There are a lot of solutions here. Nobody seems to be interested in it because what they're trying to do is make money, and they are going to try to sell this as much as they can, and it doesn't matter if the student's cheating with it or not, as long as they're making money as a company.
Considering OpenAI reportedly made $3.7 billion in revenue last year, Green isn't optimistic they or other tech companies will step in. In the meantime, he's replaced written assignments with 10-minute conversations with each student in his class. And even in the long run, putting up guardrails against AI misuse may be destined to fail unless young people understand the benefits of taking the hard road. Green argues that the most effective solution is to make students actually want to learn.
The main thing to do is to remember why you're in a university in the first place. If you're a student, you should have a sense of goal orientation, that you need to learn this material if you're going to go forward in your life. So keep your eyes on what you're there for. If there are other people cheating around you, then try to explain to them, this is not good for you. You're wasting your education. This is not what life is all about. If you're a teacher, you should be making the same argument, right? Which is that this is ultimately not what your education is for.
To find out more about Michael Long, Brian Green, and all our featured guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on X, Facebook, and Instagram. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galante. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price.